Right, folks, hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back. I realize I may have upset some people, but you know, it's all about unpacking feelings. It's all about unpacking your feelings. This is what this book does. It holds up a mirror to your face. And you can either wash your face or close the book and walk away all angry. And I did say, do not get comfortable. So let's carry on. Isaiah 31. And again, it starts with woe. Woe. Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help, who relies on horses and trusts in chariots, because they are many, and in horsemen. Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help, who rely on horses and trust in chariots, because they are many, and in horsemen, because they are very strong. But they look not to the Holy One of Yah. They look not to the Holy One of Israel, nor seek and consult Yah. Start again. Woe to those who go down to Egypt for help, who rely on horses and trust in chariots, because there are many, and in horsemen, because they are very strong. But they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, nor seek or consult the Father. Stop. See, this is what we're seeing now. Everyone running to the west for safety, because they are strong. Everybody's running. Everybody wants to come to the west. They do not seek because they do not know. Yet he is wise and brings calamity and does not retract his words. He will arise against the house, the whole race of evildoers, and against the helpers of those who work iniquity. Now the Egyptians are men and not God, and their horses are flesh and not spirit. And when the Father stretches out his hand, both Egypt and those who help will stumble, and Judah, who is helped, will fall, and they will all perish and be consumed together. For the Father has said to me, as the lion or young lion growls over his prey, and though a large band of shepherds is called out against him, he will not be terrified at their voice, or daunted at their noise. So the Father of hosts will come down to fight upon Mount Zion and upon its hills. You can't fight this. It's inevitable. It's happening. Like birds hovering, so will the Father of hosts defend Jerusalem. He will protect and deliver it. He will pass over and spare and preserve it. Return, O children of Israel, to him against whom you have deeply plunged into revolt. For in that day every man of you will cast away in contempt and disgust his idols of silver and idols of gold, which your own hands have sinfully made for you. Now these are different times. Of course it means other gods. Of course it means idols of wood and stone, but also, everything else you put in place. You worship everything else. You love everything else. Your phones. You live your life by your phone. Everything else you spend more time on and worship and value more than the God of this world. In times come, none of it's going to matter. You're going to cast it away. You can't live without your phones now, can you? But when this all starts to play out, for real, Not this nonsense you're seeing here. We're in the times of fake prophecy. I can't get rid of this feeling. It's a deep, deep feeling that we're in times of fake prophecy. When this all plays out, it's going to be undeniable, and it's going to be chaos, destruction. But what we're about to see is organized destruction. None of it's going to matter. None of it's going to matter anymore. And you'll cast away your phone because it has no use anymore. Then the Assyrians shall fall by a sword, not of man, and a sword not of men, but of God. The sword shall devour him, and he shall flee from the sword, and his young men shall be subjected to forced labour. In his flight he shall pass beyond his rock, his refuge and stronghold, because of terror. Even his officers shall desert the standard in fear and panic, says the Father, whose fire is in Zion and whose furnace is in Jerusalem. Behold, a king will reign in righteousness, and princes will rule with justice. And each one of them shall be like a hiding place from the wind and a shelter from the storm, like streams of water in a dry place, like the shade of a great rock in a weary land, to those who return to them. Then the eyes of those who will see will not be closed or dimmed, and the ears of those who hear will listen. And the mind of the rash will understand knowledge and have good judgment, and the tongue of the stammerers will speak readily and plainly. The fool, the unbeliever, and the ungodly will no more be called noble, nor the crafty and greedy for gain said to be bountiful and princely. We all know who that is. We all know. The fool and the unbeliever and the ungodly will no more be called noble, nor the crafty and greedy for gain said to be bountiful and princely. We all know some quite comfortable, quite wealthy people. No regard for God. And we respect them, don't we? We seek to be like them. In these days, you ain't gonna look to these people. Everything they're telling you, invest, do this, blah, blah, blah. None of it's gonna be of value. For the fool speaks folly in his plans. For the fool speaks folly, and he plans iniquity, practicing profane ungodliness and speaking error concerning the Father, leaving the craving of the hungry unsatisfied and causing the drink of the thirsty to fail. The fool, I'll get there, I just need to. The fool speaks folly in his plans. The fool speaks folly, and in his plans, iniquity. You only live once. Fear of missing out. Some people know what's coming, but their attitude is, you know what? I'm just going to live my best life until it does happen. Practicing profane ungodliness and speaking error concerning the Father, leaving the craving of the hungry and unsatisfied, leaving the craving and the hungry unsatisfied, and causing the drink of the thirsty to fail. You know, how many times have I heard, oh, why doesn't God end world hunger? Why doesn't God end world hunger? How much money does Bill Gates have? How much money does Jeff Bezos have? How much money does Elon Musk have? That's just three. They're down here. God gives you free will. Their riches are stored up for the righteous, and all their iniquities and everything is stored up for the end, for you to see what happens to them. This is why they have bunkers. This is why they're planning to run and escape and leave you out in the open, in the anarchy and the chaos and the madness. Even these wicked supermarkets. This is why we're grateful for every meal we have. People in other places of the world, food is scarce. We in the West, we should be comfortable and happy and praising God for every meal that we have. And He will remember that in the hard times. The hard times to come. You remember you were in comfort, you were in safety. And you were grateful for every meal you had. You didn't waste any food. You know, there's people wasting food. Look at us in the West. We waste so much food, the restaurants and supermarkets. This is why it's important. And there's no shame in it. There's no shame in going to the reduced section and buying food. Some of it you could just throw in the freezer for another day. But if you're making a meal for tonight, you just buy what's in the reduced section. You know? You don't let the food go to waste. It's gonna go off today. Cook that tonight. Feed yourself. Feed your family. But no, there are a lot of people who are comfortable. They have good money. They're like, you know, they find it a shameful thing to buy those products. But there's no shame in it. But these wicked supermarkets, they know people have less money. We have less money these days. And we're buying this food from the reduced section. And over time, what I've noticed is that they don't reduce it as much anymore because they know it's going to go. They know people are buying it. Everyone's looking at every pound, every penny. So they don't reduce it as much. They're like taking off, 75p, 50p, when before it used to be half price or less. Money, 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 money. The Most High is watching these things. Every little detail. We'll get to that. It's all about who you are and how you feel about these things. What's really in your heart. The instruments and methods of the fraudulent and greedy for gain are evil. He devises wicked devices to ruin the poor and the lowly with lying words, even when the plea of the needy is just and right. Here we go. It's all about how you feel. It's all about who you are. But the noble, open-hearted and liberal man devises noble things, and he stands for what is noble, open-hearted and generous. You know who you are. You know who you are. So there's no point in getting upset about these things that I say. The truth is the truth. If you're a good person, noble, open-hearted, and you stand for what is right, there's a place for you. But you have to walk with us. You can't just be all self-righteous and in yourself thinking, oh, I'm a good person. Why would God do this to me? And why would God do this to... If you're not with him, he has no use for you. He is the God of the world. He made all this. Acknowledge him. Okay, rise up, you women who are at ease. Rise up, you women who are at ease. Hear my Isaiah's voice. You confident and careless daughters, listen to what I am saying. In little more than a year, you will be shaken with anxiety, you careless and complacent women. For the village will fail, and the ingathering will not come. Tremble, you women who are at ease. Shudder with fear, you complacent ones. Strip yourself bare and gird sackcloth upon your loins in grief. You don't believe this, but when it actually happens and the world's falling apart, it'll be a very dangerous place for women. And you're going to need to be protected. You're going to need to be shielded. If not by man, you're going to need by some sort of good grace, some sort of divine power. You're going to need to be under the shadow of the Father, under his wings. Especially if you're not in the book, your man can just turn evil, turn very selfish. I don't want to explain the horrors that spin in my mind about when these days come, because they will give you sleepless nights like many of us have. You need some kind of divine protection. Strip yourselves bare and gird yourself in sackcloth. But no, all the selfies and all the booty photos and everything, that's what comes first. That's what's important these days, They shall beat upon their breasts for the pleasant fields, for the fruitful vine, for the land of my people growing over with thorns and briars, yes, for all the houses of joy in the joyous city. For the palace shall be forsaken, the populous city shall be deserted, the hill and the watchtower shall become dens for wild animals, endlessly. A joy for wild donkeys and pasture for flocks. I Am Legend, you've seen that film. This is the kind of what is being described here, where the animals are just roaming free. The place is a desolate wasteland. Destruction has taken place. Everything, the overgrowth. It happened to us. In these times, we did not listen to these prophets, and it happened. Again and again and again. The most horrifying times were in the siege, where people had to eat their own children. Food was so scarce. People had an evil eye to each other because of little pieces of food, little pieces of human flesh. It's you were supposed to learn from this. Until the Spirit is poured upon us from on high, the wilderness becomes a fruitful field, and the fruitful field is valued a forest. Then justice will dwell in the wilderness, and righteousness, moral and spiritual rectitude in every area and relation will abide in the fruitful field. And the effect of righteousness will be peace, internal and external, and the result of righteousness will be quietness and confident trust forever. That's talking about keeping certain people in a certain place, keeping them safe. Everybody's My people shall dwell in a peaceable habitation, in safe dwellings, and in quiet resting places, coming down overpoweringly on the forest. Oh, sorry, skipped a line there. My people shall dwell in a peaceable habitation, in safe dwellings, and in quiet resting places. But the wrath of the Father, shall hail coming down overpoweringly on the forest. And the capital city shall be utterly humbled and laid prostrate. Happy and fortunate are you who cast your seed upon all waters. When the river flows its banks, for the seed will sink into the mud. And when the waters subside, the plant will spring up. You will find it after many days and reap an abundant harvest. You who safely send forth the ox and the donkey to freely range. We read these things carefully. We slowly and carefully, and you understand. The more you read this book, you have to stay in this book. You have to persist in this book. Keep reading again and again and again, and the understanding comes as you see the reoccurring pattern, as you see the confirmation, as you see the precepts. You understand what's being said. Trust me. Rely on me. Hope in me. Wait for me. And we're all making our choice right now. We are all making our choice. But make sure it's a well-informed choice. There are rules in this book. Know what you're agreeing to. If you object to what the Israelites are bringing out to you now, do you really think you have a place in the kingdom? And when I say place, what's your idea of being saved? What is that? What is your idea of saved? You're not of the family. You're not part of Yasharel. You're not part of the bloodline. You weren't sprinkled by Moses in the blood. You're not under covenant. So what's your idea of being saved? That's a question for unbelievers, and it's a question for believers. Search the book. Search the book. But that is those who are exempt from what I'm saying. This is what I see in the book. This is what I see in the book. Those who are exempt from what I'm saying is those who are in this book. They know the truth, the true truth. This is very few people They know the true truth. They're in this book. They've given their lives. They're repenting for sins of the past, for forefathers. They're repenting of their own sins. Plus, they are noble, open-hearted. They devise noble things, and they stand for what is right, what is open-hearted and generous. They are the ones who will have a great name. Unpack your feelings. So, speaking of those who are greedy for gain and they devise wickedness, and they wicked devices to ruin the poor and the lowly with lying words, when even the plea of the needy and just is right. The unbeliever and the ungodly, the crafty, greedy for gain, who we consider bountiful and princely, the fool who speaks folly in his mind and plans iniquity, practicing profane ungodliness and speaking error concerning the Father, leaving the craving of the hungry unsatisfied and causing the drink of the thirsty to fail. You know we living in these times. How true does that sound? 26 minutes, right, plenty of time. So I'll add an excerpt. Dostoevsky, Poor Folk. So this book is about a young man and a young woman. They're both just normal, ordinary working class people. It's hard times. And they're writing letters back and forth to each other. Now this guy, he loves this young woman, but he feels like he's not worthy. So they're like just kind of pen pals. He visits her sometimes. She just does like a bit of sewing for her money. And he has his job as well. But these are just honest working class folk in hard times in Russia in the old days. I was only 17 when I first went into the service. Soon I will have spent more than 30 years in this walk of life. Well, indeed, I have worn out enough dress uniforms in my life. I have grown to man's estate, acquired some shrewdness, and seen something of people. I have seen something of people. I have lived, and I can say that I have lived in the world. To the extent that once I was even mentioned to receive a medal. Perhaps you will not believe me, but I assure you that is so. And what became of it, little mother? Evil men brought it all to nothing. But I will tell you, my darling, that even though I may be an ignorant man, a stupid man, my heart is the same as anyone else's. Do you know what an evil man did to me, Varenka? It is shameful to tell you what he did. You will ask what he did. Sorry. You will ask why he did it. He did it because I am a meek soul, because I am a quiet, a good little soul. I did not appeal to his taste, and so he let fly at me. It began with him saying things to me like, you are this and you are that, Makar Alexievich. Then this turned into, oh, it's no good asking Makar Alexievich. And finally this became, it's all Makar Alexievich's fault. Of course, You see, my darling, how it went. Everything was laid at Makar Alexeyevitch's door. The name of Makar Alexeyevich became a watchword throughout our entire department. And it was not enough that they made me into a watchword, into a term of abuse. Almost, they latched onto my boots, my uniform, my hair, the shape of my body. None of these were to their liking. They must all be changed. I mean, all this has been repeated every single day of the week since God knows when. I have grown accustomed to it because I can grow accustomed to anything, because I am a meek man, because I am a little man. But I ask, what is the reason for it all? What wrong have I done to anyone? Have I stolen promotion from anyone? Have I ever slandered anyone to the higher-ups? Asked for a bonus I did not deserve? Made up tales? It would be unjust for you even to think of such a thing, little mother. Why would I ever do anything like that? Just look at me, my darling. Do I look as though I had a leaning for perfidy and ambition? Do I look as though I have a leaning toward perfidy and ambition? So why have such disasters befallen me in the name of God? After all, you consider me a worthy man, and you are immeasurably better than all of them, little mother. I mean, what is the greatest civic virtue? Yevstavy Ivanovich said the other day in a private conversation I had with him that the most important civic virtue is to know how to make a lot of money, he said, jokingly. I know he was joking. That mortal education consists merely in learning how to not be a burden to anyone. And I am not a burden to anyone. My crust of bread is my own. It's true that it's a plain crust of bread, and even at times it's a dry one, but there it is. I earned by my labours and consumed lawfully and exceptionably. Well, what can one do? I mean, I know that the copying I do is not much of a job. He copies, because in those days they didn't have photocopiers, so he just copies paperwork and manuscripts and stuff. But that line, I'm just going to repeat that line, sorry. It's just so good. It's so good. My crust of bread is my own. It's true that it's a plain crust of bread, and at times even a dry one. But there it is, earned by my labours and consumed lawfully and unexceptionably. Humility, just humble. We're happy where we are, we should be able to still live a life in our humble jobs. Well, what can one do? I mean, I know that the copying I do is not much of a job. Yet, even so, I am proud of it. I work in the sweat of my brow. So what is wrong with the fact that I earn my living by copying? Is copying a sin? He just copies documents, they say. That rat of a government clerk makes his living by copying. Yet, what is dishonourable about it? My handwriting is clear, well-formed, and pleasant to look at. And His Excellency is satisfied with it. I copy his most important documents for him. Of course, I have no literary style. I know I have none. Curse it. That is why I have not succeeded in rising in the service, and why, even now, my darling, I write to you in this plain manner, with no frills, just as the thoughts come into my heart. All this I know. And indeed, if anyone were to start being an author, who would do the copying? This is the question I ask you, and I beg you to answer it, little mother. Well, so now I am aware that I am necessary, that I am indispensable, and that a man is silly to be upset by nonsense. I love that. I love that, man. All this I know, and indeed, if everyone were to start being an author, who would do the copying? This is the question I ask you, and I beg you to answer, little mother. Well, so now I am aware that I am necessary, that I am indispensable. Our jobs are important to your jobs. Your jobs aren't possible without our honest blue-collar jobs. Can you see the times we're moving in? They know we won't take this for long. We will not take this for long. So here comes the AI, here come the machines to replace us. And of course, there's too many of us. You can't just have these people in society. And people say, oh, well, they'll just, everyone's on benefits then, everyone's on benefits, everyone's on CBDC and blah, 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 and all these other things. But no, they're not going to do that. They plan to thin the herd. This is the build-up, what you're seeing. They're trying to control the prophecy themselves. They have this mindset where they think they're the right hand of God. They don't believe in the miracles. They think this is some book, this some Baba Yaga, Nostradamus kind of thing where everyone in this book was just a psychic. All the supernatural stuff is not really real. But what they said came true. They have some sense of religiousness, some sense of spirit, but they do not believe the powers thereof. So they seek to do all this themselves. Our jobs have meaning. Without our jobs, their jobs aren't possible. So for them to consist in their life and to carry on in their life, and they seek to replace us in our jobs. But it's all backfiring, you know. They have this really great plan, but it's all backfiring. Look at all the supermarkets with their self-checkouts. They're reconsidering this now because they lose so much money. So many people steal at the self-checkouts. And they're realizing how much money they're actually losing in this 10 years, 5-10 years, which they've had these self-checkout machines, and they keep more and more and more. All this I know, and indeed, if everyone were to start being an author, who would do the copying? That is the question I ask you, and I beg you to answer, little mother. Well, so now I am aware that I am necessary, that I am indispensable, and that a man is silly to be upset by nonsense. All right. Let me be a rat, since you found the resemblance. But this rat is in need. All right, let me be a rat, since you have found resemblance. But this rat is needed. This rat is of use. This rat is relied upon. And this rat receives a bonus. That's the sort of rat it is. But enough of this subject, my darling. I do not really wish to speak of it, but got carried away a little in the heat of the moment. All the same, it is pleasant to do oneself justice from time to time. Goodbye, my darling, my little dove, my consoler. I will come and see you. I promise I will. I shall call on you, my treasure. And in the meantime, don't pine. I shall bring you a book. Well, goodbye, Varenka. Yeah, so like I said before, there's no point in getting upset. This book speaks to you as well, no matter what country you live in. It gives you opportunity, it gives you chance. The Most High is saying, come to me, rely on me. It's inevitable, it's coming, I'm coming. I'm coming to just destroy all this madness. Rely on me. Don't think you can vote for these guys, for these people. They only have their own interests and the interest of their little circles and their little families. Put your feelings aside. Unpack these feelings. God is watching your feelings. He cares about your feelings because your feelings dictate your actions. We can't save our countries because our countries are controlled by these kind of people. All we can do is save ourselves. That's all we can do. We can't save our countries, we can't save our people. We can save ourselves. It's a choice. Everyone has a choice. It's a hard choice to make. Everywhere. Nigeria's in serious trouble. But the timing, you see the timing? So with all this Palestine stuff, people are asking, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then us black folks, yeah, we're like, oh, well, it's not just about Palestine, is it? Look at the Congo, look at Sudan, look at Africa all through these times. We haven't had protests in the streets after everything that goes on in Africa. So people are starting to realize, okay, you know what? That's a good point. That's a very good point. And people's attention is turning towards the Congo. So what happens now? Exactly. What are we seeing in the news? Oh, a pandemic coming out of the Congo. So Kenya erupts. They're trying to take back power. Ruto must go. That spreads to Nigeria. Nigeria start trying to take back their country, put an end to all this nonsense, all this foolishness, all this wickedness. It's time to look after us, the people. Nigeria erupts. What happens? Major flooding in the north, you know. And like I said before, there's dams. It's just the coincidence of things, you know. And the timing. So North Africa is flooded. This is where they have their farming and everything. The people were already complaining about how they're hungry and the food is scarce, and now their farmlands are flooded. What a convenient way to quell the resistance. They'll tell you on the news, oh, it was an act of God, or who knows, it might be. This is why we watch, we be vigilant, but it's just the timing, and these are things that spin around in my head. Was it an act of God? Or then I think of the timing and but even us, we know, even in Africa, there's a spewing out process. That's in Leviticus 18 or 19. There's a spewing out process to make way for the kingdom. So it's not really about race. Although we are the Israelites. It's, you need to take everything into consideration. It's up to you. There's a way out. Pick up the book. Walk with us. We're going through the door.